My name is Claire, and I was 27 the night I learned what it costs to be optional. The envelope was cream heavy as a promise. My name pressed into gold like it belonged in that weight. National Design Awards, Art Institute of Chicago, December 15th. I ran my thumb over the embossed seal the way you test a dream for edges. My sustainable community library. It was finally more than just blueprints, caffeine, and code. It was seen. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. I called my mother first. The phone rang 3 times, then her voice distracted. I could hear the blare of a TV in the background, a game, always a game. Hi, Mom. Big news. What is it, sweetie? I won the award. The big one. The National Design Award. I have to give a speech at the Art Institute of Chicago. A pause. A muffled voice, my dad, Mark asking who it was. She covered the receiver, but I could still hear. It's Claire. She won that drawing thing. Drawing thing, I whispered. That's wonderful, honey, she said, her voice bright and false. When is it? December 15th. It's a Saturday. The silence on the other end was so long I thought the call had dropped. I heard her sigh, a sound I knew better than my own name. Oh, Claire, that's Logan's playoff weekend. Just like that, the air left the room. The ceremony is one night, Mom. His game is Friday, right? Well, yes, but your father and I... We were planning to drive down early, to be there for him to make sure he's settled. The weather might be bad. We need to be there just in case. Just in case. That was the phrase my entire childhood was built on. Just in case Logan needed something. Just in case his feelings were more important than mine. So have I said. The words were quiet, but they felt heavy. I've worked my whole life for this. He really wants us there, Claire, she said, as if that settled it. Mom. It's the Art Institute. I'm giving a speech. Well, you can send us the video of your speech, can't you? She offered that casual, generous tone that always felt like a slap. We'll all watch it together when we get back from Logan's game. There it was. The hairline fracture, the moment you hear something break inside and you know it will never ever be the same. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the wall of my apartment at the blueprints I'd stayed up all night finishing. Claire, don't be like that. Like what? You're not being sensitive, I said. My voice was suddenly cold clear. I'm just updating my expectations. We'll try to make it if we can, she said. The lie so easy for her. Don't, I said. Don't strain yourselves. I ended the call before my voice could crack. I looked around my studio. In a frame on my desk was the last family photo I'd bothered to keep. All of us at Logan's college signing day. My parents beaming wearing his jersey. Logan front and center holding the pen like a trophy. And me at the edge of the frame, half in shadow, my face blurred just enough to be optional. This was the algebra of favoritism, a math I'd known my whole life. Logan was the whole number. I was the remainder, the fraction, the rounding error. I remembered when I got my first scholarship to architecture school. I'd called home so excited I could barely breathe. My dad had said, "That's great. Hey, did you hear Logan just made starting quarterback?" I'd paid my own way through 6 years of college. Student loans that felt like anchors, scholarships. I fought for 2 part-time jobs. All while they paid for Logan's new car, his spring break trips, his apartment near campus. This wasn't new. This was just the end. I didn't call back. I didn't text. What was the point? Arguing only works when the other person thinks you have a right to be angry. I sat there for a long time just staring at the math. The algebra of their love. It always came down to this. Logan's wants outweighed my needs, every single time. It took me years to learn the term for it. Psychologists call it the golden child and black sheep dynamic. And it's never really about love. It's about ego. For parents like mine, the golden child Logan was a mirror. He was their second chance at glory, their public relations victory. His successes were their successes. When he won, they won. The black sheep me. I was a mirror too, but I reflected everything they didn't want to see. My quiet ambition wasn't something to be proud of. It was a threat. My different path wasn't independence. It was a judgment on theirs. Logan was their reflection. I was their competition. And that's why they funded him. I thought about my 6 years in architecture school. The all-nighters fueled by instant noodles and cheap coffee. The scholarships I had to fight for every single semester. The 2 part-time jobs I worked just to cover my supplies and rent, finally graduating with over $60,000 in student debt. I remembered calling home terrified after my financial aid for junior year was reduced. My dad told me, "Well, Claire, you're an adult. You need to be responsible for your own choices." A month later, they bought Logan a brand new truck for his 21st birthday because his old one wasn't reliable. I thought about the summers Logan spent backpacking through Europe, funded by graduation gifts. The same summers I spent interning for free in Chicago, just trying to get a foothold in my industry. They weren't just overlooking me. They were actively investing in his life while cashing out on mine. They didn't see me as a daughter, they saw me as a self-sustaining utility. The responsible one. The one who would just figure it out. The one who would always understand. I looked at the cream-colored envelope on my table. The National Design Award. The highest honor in my field. And I realized they thought I'd understand this too. That I'd quietly accept being benched for his playoff game. I picked up my phone. I didn't call them. I opened my email and sent a message to the awards committee. Re-guest tickets, Claire. I typed in 2 names, Chloe and Douglas. My best friend and my mentor. The people who had actually seen my work. The ones who had shown up for me when my own family was too busy watching the game. My real family. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was space. It was the first clean, quiet room I had ever lived in. No one called. I didn't text. I just worked. 18 months passed. Not in days, but in blueprints and client meetings. I poured every bit of my energy, every late night, every ounce of that banked-up hurt into Aura Designs. My firm. My vision. I hired 2 junior designers who shared my passion for sustainable materials. We landed a small community center, then a boutique hotel. I worked until my hands ached and my mind was quiet. I was building something real, something that had my name on it, and it felt more solid than any family tie I'd ever known. And somewhere in that quiet, Evan walked in. I met him on a job site. He was a landscape architect, and he had this calm, steady way about him. He didn't just look at my designs, he saw them. He asked about the airflow, the light, the way the building would settle into the earth. 3 dates in, he asked the inevitable question, his eyes kind. "Is your family local?" I waited for the familiar tightness in my chest, the need to apologize or explain. But it didn't come. "They're around," I said. He just nodded, sensing the weight. "Around sounds complicated." "It's less complicated when I don't call," I said. And that was it. He didn't press. He didn't demand explanations. He just accepted my answer and asked about my day. It was the first time I realized support didn't have to be loud or performative. Sometimes it was just the quiet absence of judgment. My life started to feel solid, like a foundation I was pouring for myself 1 square foot at a time. The work got better. We started focusing on sustainable, low-income housing, blending beauty with human dignity. Then one afternoon, my old mentor Douglas called. His voice sounded formal, like he was hiding a smile. "Claire," he said, "have you seen the latest issue of Architectural Digest?" "No, I've been buried in zoning codes for the Milner project." "Why?" "Well, you might want to pick one up. Turn to page 90. My heart hammered. I ran down to the corner newsstand, the one that carried the expensive international magazines. I flipped through the glossy, heavy pages, my hands shaking. And then I saw it. The AD. 40. The New Faces of Architecture. And there, taking up a full 2 pages, was my community library design. And my photo. I hadn't even known Douglas nominated me. It wasn't just a win. It was the win. The Forbes of my world. The one award that said you weren't just good, you were the future. I sat on a park bench, the magazine open on my lap, and I thought about that first award, the one at the Art Institute. I'd been so desperate for my family to see it so broken when they chose a game instead. Now holding this, I realized with a strange, clean clarity. I hadn't even thought to tell them I was nominated. I had built a life, a career, and a home, so complete that their applause was no longer a required building material. I was my own architect. I was my own foundation. And they were just the people who used to live next door. They had no idea. They were still somewhere back in that stadium, cheering for a game that had ended seasons ago, completely unaware that the daughter they'd written off as a rounding error had just taken over the entire ledger. I didn't expect the list to drop on a Tuesday. I was in a deep dive meeting with a new client sketching out a sustainable atrium when my phone face down on the table started to vibrate. Not just once. It vibrated continuously, a low, angry buzz against the wood. My colleague Chloe, sitting across from me, raised an eyebrow. "You suddenly become an international spy," she whispered. I ignored it. But when the meeting ended, I had 19 new text messages, 43 email alerts, and 7 missed calls. The 80/40 list was live. My phone was a digital wildfire. Colleagues I hadn't spoken to in years old, professors, even the clients from the boutique hotel. Congratulations, Claire Stunning, you deserve this. My mentor Douglas sent the simplest message: I told you so. I just sat there staring at my own face on the Architectural Digest website next to the words, The Visionary. It didn't feel real. It felt quiet. Evan sent a screenshot of the article with a string of champagne bottle emojis. I called him and he just laughed. I'm dating a visionary, he said. I'm canceling my afternoon. We're celebrating. It was a perfect, clean moment of joy. And the most perfect part, the silence. The absolute, deafening, beautiful silence from my family. They had no idea. They weren't part of this. My success was completely wonderfully mine. But the thing about the universe is it hates a vacuum. And my family hates being left out of the loop, even a loop they cut themselves out of. The discovery, as it turned out, happened in the one place I never would have looked. My brother Logan was at his head coach's house. It was 2 days after the article dropped. He was there for a postseason review, probably getting his ego polished. He was sitting on a leather sofa, bored, while his coach finished a call. He picked up the magazine on the coffee table. Architectural Digest. Not his usual read. He told me later he was just looking for pictures of cars or watches. He flipped a page, flipped another, and then he froze. There I was. A 2-page spread. The library. My photo. The one where I looked confident, happy, and nothing at all like the optional daughter he knew. He stared at it. The name, the face, Claire, Aura Designs, the visionary. The words didn't add up. This was his sister. The quiet one. The boring one. The one who lost arguments and paid for her own school. How? He didn't text me. He didn't even call me. He called my father. Mark told me about the call later, his voice still shaking at the memory. The phone rang and it was Logan, but he wasn't calm. He was shouting, breathless, panicked. Dad, are you looking at this? How? How did she do this? Do what, Logan, what's wrong? The magazine, the AD 40 thing, she's in it, Claire. How did she get in it? Is this real? How much money does she have? What is Aura Designs? Why didn't she tell us? My father, confused, hung up and called my mother. Karen, go to the store right now and buy an Architectural Digest magazine. Something's wrong with Claire. My mother, annoyed, went to the grocery store. She found the magazine. She stood in the checkout aisle flipping through it until she saw my face. The family group chat, the one I wasn't in, exploded. My success wasn't a celebration. It was an ambush. They weren't proud, they were furious. Because I had done the one thing they had never ever expected me to do. I had become important all by myself. And I had done it without their permission. The calls started on a Thursday. Not to my phone, but to my office. My receptionist, Chloe, buzzed me. Claire, your mother, is on line 1. She sounds insistent. I looked at the phone. Tell her I'm in a client meeting, Chloe. And tell her that for the rest of the day. An hour later, Chloe buzzed again, her voice tight. Claire, your mother is in the lobby. I walked out, and there she was, Karen, holding a Pyrex casserole dish wrapped in tin foil, the classic peace offering of someone who has no intention of actually apologizing. Claire, thank God, she said, rushing forward. We've been so worried. You didn't tell us about this magazine. I stood still, letting her stand there holding the casserole. I'm in the middle of a workday, Mom. I brought your favorite, she said, lifting the dish. We can talk. There's nothing to talk about. You need to leave. You're interrupting my business. Don't be like that, she hissed, her smile freezing. This has gone on long enough. You've made your point. I haven't made any point, I said, my voice as cold and clean as my office's glass walls. I've just been working. Chloe, my mother, is leaving. She left the casserole on the reception desk. I told Chloe to throw it in the trash. The next ambush was my father's. He was smarter. He waited until 6 a.m. outside my gym. He stepped out from behind a car holding 2 coffees, like this was a normal Saturday. Claire, he said, holding one out. You've got a minute. I didn't take the coffee. You're trespassing, Dad. Don't be dramatic. We were wrong, okay? About the award, we should have been there. But you've always been so independent, Claire. We thought you didn't need us. It was the oldest excuse in their book, the one they used every time they chose Logan. I wasn't independent, Dad. I was abandoned. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the morning air. I did need you. I needed you when I was applying for student loans. You co-signed for Logan in a heartbeat. I needed you at my college graduation. I needed you at the Art Institute. I just stopped asking. Because you were always at a game. He had no answer. He just stood there looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, his coffee getting cold. I have to go, I said, and walked past him into the gym. Then came Logan. He showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door like he owned the place. I opened it, and he just stared at me, his golden boy confidence completely gone. You're making us look like monsters, Claire, he said. I'm not making you look like anything, I said. I'm just not hiding for you anymore. I shut the door. But the real confrontation was still to come. An invitation arrived in my email, my old high school. They wanted me, an AD 40 winner, to be the keynote speaker for their career day. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. The same auditorium where my parents had sat on hard bleachers, screaming themselves hoarse for Logan. Now they wanted me on the stage. I typed back one word, yes. The day of the speech, I felt a strange calm. I walked into the old familiar auditorium, and just as I'd expected, tucked in the very back row trying to be invisible were the three of them, Karen, Mark, and Logan. They had found a way in. I stood at the podium. I didn't look at them. I looked at the 300 students. Good morning, I said. When I was a student here, I was invisible. I got good grades, I didn't cause trouble, and I was the reliable one. I clicked to the next slide. It was a picture of my National Design Award invitation. 18 months ago, I won this, the highest award in my field. It was the most important night of my life. I was asked to give a speech in Chicago. I clicked again. The next slide was a stark black and white photo of 3 empty auditorium chairs. These were my family seats, I said into the microphone. The room went absolutely silent. My family didn't come. They chose to go to my brother's playoff game instead. They told me to send a video. I could feel their eyes from the back row. Burning. I'm not telling you this to make you sad. I said, my voice strong. I'm telling you this because for my entire life I thought their approval was the prize. I thought I had to work hard enough, be successful enough to finally earn their attention. I was wrong. I clicked to the final slide. It was the cover of Architectural Digest. My face, my name. Your validation is the foundation you build for yourself. It is not a room you wait for someone else to let you into. Don't build your dreams on someone else's approval. They might not show up. Build it for you, because you will always be there. I looked up. The students were staring at me, and in the back row, my mother's face was buried in her hands. I had never felt so powerful. The silence that followed wasn't angry. It was peaceful. It settled over my life like fresh snow, clean and quiet. My company, Aura Designs, thrived. We hired 3 more people. We won the Milner project. Evan and I found a beautiful apartment in Lincoln Park, one with huge windows that let in the morning light. Douglas and Chloe became my real family, the ones I called to celebrate, the ones I leaned on when a design failed. The seasons turned. My father's attempts to contact me stopped. My mother's angry emails tapered off, replaced by a hollow digital silence. Then one afternoon, almost 18 months after the high school speech, a text came through from an unknown number. Claire, I don't know if you'll read this. I'm not asking you to reply. But I've been in therapy for the last 6 months. I wanted to understand why I was the way I was. Why I always expected you to be the one to understand a sacrifice. I was selfish. I saw you as an extension of me, someone who was just there. I took your support for granted, and I let Mom and Dad do it too. I'm sorry for being a bad brother. I'm sorry I wasn't there. It was from Logan. I read it 3 times. It was a real apology. Measured, honest, and fueled by therapy. 6 years ago, it would have saved me. 2 years ago, it would have made me weep with relief. Now, I just felt a quiet acknowledgement. He was finally doing his own work. I copied the text, saved it in a new folder on my computer, titled Closed, and then I deleted the message. The apology had finally arrived, but I had stopped waiting for it. I didn't need it anymore. My victory wasn't about them finally seeing the light. It wasn't about making them pay. It was about using the price I paid. I've learned there are 2 kinds of justice. There is punitive justice, which only looks backward. It's about settling a score. It keeps you chained to the very people you're trying to escape. But then there's creative justice, the justice of the sower. It looks forward. It takes the rubble of what was torn down and uses it to build a new foundation. I opened my laptop and looked at the $2 million in seed funding I'd just secured for my firm's next phase. I transferred a large portion of it into a new account. I didn't buy a car. I didn't buy a house. I launched the Aura Scholarship, a full-ride fund for promising young architecture students from disadvantaged backgrounds, specifically for kids who, like me, didn't have family support to fall back on. I'm standing in my new office now, the one I designed with a glass wall overlooking the Chicago River. It's quiet. I'm at peace. If you've ever felt like the optional one in your own home, if you're used to celebrating your biggest wins in silence because you know no one will answer the phone, let this be your sign. You do not need their permission to shine. Your validation is the foundation you build for yourself, not a room you wait for someone else to let you into. Build it.